Okay, there we go. Cool. Hello. Hello, volunteers, Animal Friends Alliance volunteers. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Amelia Weaver. I am a certified cat behavior consultant through the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants. I'm also a dog trainer, and I am going to go through some of my little tips when it comes to working with shy cats in the shelter, especially now that we are with the new shelter. It's new as of right now for us, for Animal Friends Alliance. There's colony rooms, so that adds a little bit of an extra spin, or a unique spin to working with some of these more shy cats. So I we'll go ahead and get started. So I guess first and foremost, we need to figure out what is a shy cat. So I'll go through some pictures, but to help you identify, and there will be some videos after this too. But if you're walking into a colony room and you've got a cat that's hiding under a blanket, or the furniture, uh, also if they retreat on approach, so they see you coming and they hide. They may be in a tight loaf, so their body is the muscles are very tight. Their little feet are pulled up underneath them. The tail might be wrapped around them really tightly. The head might be pulled back. They may even be like backed into a corner or backed into a carrier. Often these cats are going to avoid contact. Sometimes shy cats can be curious and might come up. We have a couple in the videos here that might come up to investigate, but they're very suspicious. They're a little bit on edge, and so they'll come up, but if you move too fast, they're going to quickly move away. So any of those little movements towards you, we want to really foster that little bit of trust that they've given us and try not to burn the bridge by like reaching for them too quickly. And I'll talk about how to greet them and all of that. Some other little body language cues might be like a head turn away. They may look at you and then turn and look down. Um, it's just generally an appeasement gesture. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are, I would say if a cat turns their head away from you, just see if you can get them to come back to you. But if they start to lean away even further, then don't continue to reach towards them. Um, and they might do a little lip lick or a yawn. They may even also close their eyes, which it's kind of like I'm pretending that they're not there. So it'll be more of like with the sweet slow blinks, like kitty kisses, right? It's going to be more of a closed eye and um, uh, tighter facial muscles. So these are not always some of the pictures I picked up on the internet. Definitely looking at the pupils, like this kiddo sitting in this green bin or litter box, has huge dilated pupils. Um, but their ears are forward, so they're very alert. If a cat's ready to maybe strike in defensive mode, they are likely going to put their ears back. So um, some of these cats have what I would call like airplane ears, where their ears go out to the side. If a cat presses their ears back, definitely retreat. Don't keep reaching towards them. That's a pretty good indication that they may be getting ready to swat at you, or in feeling like they need to defend themselves. Um, so big dilated pupils means that they're nervous. Really just means that they are going into like fight or flight mode. It's a physiological response, so they don't really have control over those pupils. It's just happening because the body's getting ready to either defend itself or run away. Um, and The lip licking is probably going to look, this cat like looks to me like they were just grooming themselves or maybe just finished eating. But the lip licking, it's kind of more of a nose lick, or they'll stick their tongue out um, and pull it back in. I should really get video. I have a cat that does do that when he's a little bit on edge, quite a bit, and he's a black cat, so you can really see his pink tongue stick out. But in any case, if a cat is just sitting there and they just start kind of licking their mouth as you're coming towards them, it could just be that they finished eating. It could be that they're nauseous. It could be that they just finished grooming, but it can also mean that they are a little bit nervous. And it's like a displacement behavior. Like I'm a little uncomfortable, lick my lips, and just taking note of that and realizing that if you're seeing that this cat, along with everything else that might be going on in the environment around this cat, maybe asking you to give them a little bit of space. Um, and the cat down here with the pink blanket, this kiddo's pupils are pretty dilated for the light in the room. So again, kind of nervous. Ears are starting to go out to the side. Um, this cat also you can see is leaning back into a corner, and kind of can see some furrowing brow, right? A little bit. I mean, of course, there's just the stripes there, but you kind of can tell that the eyebrows have been pulled together a little bit. And maybe even a little bit of puckering of the mouth or tightening of the mouth, which will then pull those whiskers forward, like they're trying to investigate what's in front of them, maybe, right? And this kiddo down here gives a really good, this orange cat down at the bottom gives a really good like lip puffing. And often cats, we miss that when cats do that. This is a pretty crazy picture, whether they just happened to catch it or whether the cat was doing something else, and it looks a lot like the lip puffing. But if you see a cat kind of puff their lips and put their ears out to the side like that, it's sort of frustrating. It's a frustrated cat. So they may not be necessarily, they may have been shy and now they're starting to get frustrated with you because you keep getting too close and maybe they don't feel like they can retreat. For instance, like this kiddo in this little hidey hole here, you know, dilated pupils, body's kind of a tight loaf, but maybe they were just relaxing and snoozing and then someone opened up the door and peeked in. So their pupils got kind of big and the airplane ears came out. And again, like the feet are tucked away. Um, Yawning, I think is also can be a physiological response of maybe getting ready for fight or flight, pulling in more oxygen. And then this little kitten here has kind of a cute little worried brow. And I think cats are kind of lucky in that their faces are similar enough to humans that we have a tendency to read emotions into what they're showing us with their faces because it may remind us a little bit about how we look in certain situations. um and so anyway, this little kitten here, you can kind of see he's got his mouth would kind of tight, right, and those whiskers are forward, maybe reaching out to see what's in front of him. Cats do not see very well up close. So that's why those whiskers can help out. So that's another reason if your hand comes close enough, they may not really be able to see what you're doing with your hand. And it's a good reason to go slow and also come to them maybe more from the side so they can actually see your hand and what it's actually doing. In some of the videos, you might see me kind of wiggle my fingers a little bit. I do that sort of in play, but it seems to also help the cats maybe even just see where my hand is a little bit too, so they're not suddenly startled by being touched. Um, okay, moving on. So, how to introduce yourself to a cat. I guess we'll circle back real quick. One of the things that I forgot to mention, kind of with these pictures and all of that, the reason why we really want to be not only because we care about the cat's mental health and we want to make sure they're comfortable in the shelter, and the more comfortable they are in the shelter, the more likely they are to be adopted because they'll be more outgoing with adopters. But also, shy cats, if pushed, can become aggressive cats. And they are becoming aggressive because they're defending themselves, because people have not been, respecting their subtle signs of stress, asking for space and for distance. So they feel that they need to then defend themselves, either with swatting, um, or biting. So, just to make that clear, the reason why we want to know these and respect it is so that we can make sure that these cats, we earn their trust and help them come out of that shy shy place. I'll also keep making sure that we don't trigger aggression. So introducing them is, of course, going to be your number one way to do that. You can do a pseudo nose touch, which I then also start to mark and reward for, and we call it touch, teaching them to touch their nose to our finger to get a treat. And it can be used to teach other behaviors, but just for the for starters, it's a nice way to let the cat come up and sniff your hand. So you may need to meet them halfway depending on where they are um, in the rooms. If they're in a carrier, um, you'll see me working with one kitty in a carrier. If they are up on a shelf, right? There's different ways of maybe meeting them halfway. But the biggest point is to just make sure that you're not just jamming your hand in their face, that you're letting them come to you a bit. And so usually I will present my hand and, within sight of them and give them the opportunity to reach towards my hand and sniff my finger. You can also then maybe rub knuckles up against their head. That can be seen as a little forehead bump. There's some scent sharing going on there between cats when they head bump each other. Um, and you can even just do little short strokes on the head and down the cheek or under the chin to get a little scritchy under here. Again, it's a polite grooming. When cats will greet one another, they'll usually like the one greeting will often put their head underneath the other cat's chin and maybe will nuzzle in a little bit into their chin to see if they'll get a little forehead lick from the other cat. Sometimes it can be switched where the other cat will kind of come up and lick the other cat's forehead. These are just, some things that you can try to mimic without actually licking cats. Is using your fingers, doing a little cheek rub. Then, whoops, yeah, I rolled the thing. But also then once you do make contact with a shy cat, just pet once, twice, maybe 3 times, and then stop. And then see if they reciprocate. If they come to you and they're like, yeah, hey, that was nice, thanks. Great. Then you made a good first impression. Also, maybe that cat would be interested in more petting. If they sniff and move away, don't be insulted. Of course, it's just them letting you know I'm really not comfortable moving forward. But at least you've given them the option and the agency to let you know, hey, no thanks. So here's a little video of me meeting one of these cats, and I feel like my voice in this video at the beginning sounds like a character from SNL, like I don't know, I can't think of who it is, but anyway, it's ridiculous. Here we go.
Hi, sweetheart. Hello. All right. Hello. Yeah. Is it a sniff sniff? Is it episode? Yeah. Is it okay? It's okay. What do you think of that? She's like, I would like more of that goo, please. How about I give you a little hand pull? Okay. He's like, no, I really want more of the goo. Petty. Petting. Mm-hmm.
And so with that cat, I was trying to just give her a little precursor cue or just a little, lack of a better way to put it, really like a verbal warning of just, I'm about to pet you. So sometimes that helps cats be a little more comfortable if you just say something like petting, just before you reach your hand towards them. So it's not at the same time. It's literally like, may I? And then you reach your hand towards. And if you ask, may I, or petting, and they move away or they look at you, with big eyes, like pupils wide, then in my opinion, that's giving you like a very clear stop. And so that way you don't have your hand up in their business and them having to tell you stop either with a swat or a runaway, a flee because you're too into their business. So I tried that with that one, and I think I do a couple more little kind of demonstrations of that in a couple of these other videos. Um, but as you can see, that cat was, ears were forward and she was into eating, and she just really was not going to come out of that box. But she was otherwise, engaging and moving around and looking very bright-eyed. Not very, she wasn't very stiff and like hiding back and leaning away a whole bunch. So, she appeared to be quite comfortable and motivated to eat some of the Cheerio treat, but wasn't super excited about being pet. And that's just, we just work on it. Um, there we go. So, the four quadrants is just something that I like to share with you so you have an idea of what some of this terminology means and how we may use it when interacting with cats. Of course, the B-Mod Squad course, we go into this in more detail, and I'll quiz everybody on giving examples of each and all of that. Mostly for today's purposes, this is just for you to get an understanding of like pretty much just positive reinforcement, and when do we start asking a shy cat to perform a behavior in order to reinforce it with a treat. um, so by definition, a reinforcer or reinforcement is a result or a consequence that increases a behavior. So the behavior happens, and then there's this consequence, and the consequence is enjoyable and the animal likes it, so they're going to repeat that behavior. A punisher, by definition, is a consequence that decreases behavior. I did something, I didn't like what happened afterwards, I'm not going to do that again, or I'm not going to do that, until I forget, and then I do it again, whatever. But so for our purposes, we would maybe use like, so positive and negative in the four quadrant sense. Positive means like math, adding, and negative means taking away, like subtraction. So it doesn't mean positive as in like good and negative as in bad, for this instance. So not to like, drive you too crazy, you may hear me say a positive conditioned emotional response to things or a negative conditioned emotional response to something. Um, and that in that situation, we are not talking about the four quadrants. We're talking about um, classical conditioning, and so that's where things get a little bit can get a little bit muddy. And Anyway, for now, we've got positive reinforcement. So that means that we are applying something the animal likes to increase behavior. So we are going to apply giving a treat for coming to the front of the cage. And so the cat gets up, stretches, walks up to the front of the cage, or walks up to the front of the door, and then maybe we chuck a little bit of like a temptation treat underneath the door, just to give them that little reinforcement that if you come to the front, you're going to get a cookie. And also that helps with adoption rates because people like cats that want to come say hi to them. And if every cat thinks that anyone that walks by is going to give them a treat, even if it's not all the time, it does. It's likely that the cat's going to come to the front of the room, or come up to the door to say hi to people that are standing there. Negative reinforcement would mean that you are removing something that the animal maybe doesn't like in order to increase behavior. So There's a slide in here that I will talk briefly about. I don't know how usable it is at this point in the colony rooms, but potentially if as we get more comfortable with these colony rooms, that might be something we integrate more. The idea is that you are the negative, or you are the aversive stimulus. You are the stimulus that the cat does not want. And so you come into the room, and then say the cat offers you calm behavior, like they look at you and then they slow blink or sniff the floor. Then you turn and walk away. You leaving because of their behavior reinforces that behavior to happen more often. Typically, we think of like the cat hisses at us and then we leave, right? So this gives the cat an opportunity to perform a behavior that is not so rooted in frustration or fear or anger, and is more just rooted in like a calm response to you coming in. And so um, it's a little bit tricky, I think, for folks to potentially wrap their head around if they're not super familiar with training behavior modification as a whole. But you can kind of take that one home with you and chew on it for a little bit, and feel free to reach out with any questions. And again, I'll have another slide in here about that too. But you're basically removing something the animal doesn't want in order to increase the behavior. So you'd be removing yourself in order to increase the behavior. Positive punishment is applying something that the animal, of course, doesn't like, so it decreases the behavior. An example of that would be the cat scratches the couch, they get sprayed by a water bottle. So they stop scratching the couch in theory, but generally speaking, the cat's just going to stop scratching the couch in front of the person with the water bottle versus um so they'll just scratch it when the person's not there. Or and another little mention about punishment is that it can also have side effects, emotional fallout, where the cat then becomes afraid of the person. The cat might become afraid of water bottles in general, and maybe they need to be groomed, or they need to be sprayed with a like if you get a hot spot and they need some kind of um, spray to help them heal a hot spot. So we don't want our cats becoming just straight up afraid of spray bottles in general, or afraid of us if we can help it. Negative punishment is then removing something the animal wants to decrease behavior. So this is a little bit more of like a bummer scenario. Like, say for instance, you don't want your cat jumping on counters. The cat jumps on the counter for attention, and instead of petting them or even yelling at them or picking them up and putting them back on the floor, you just walk out of the room and teach them that if you want my attention, you jump up on the cat tree and then you'll get attention. Or you start teaching them with positive reinforcement: if you jump up on this cat tree, you will get goodies. So therefore, jumping on the cat tree is more reinforcing than jumping up on the counter. However, just not to go on a total tangent here, but cats like to be up on vertical space. It helps them feel safe. So there might be other motivations for jumping on the counters than just getting your attention. It may also be for them to feel safer and more secure in their environment. So I digress. That's just maybe a more of a enrichment management, environmental management issue. Um, okay. I felt like I was gonna maybe say something else about that, but I forget what it was. So we're gonna move on. Um, and we will talk a little bit about that scaredy cat protocol again in a little bit. So, um, for positive reinforcement, since that's our focus, we are going to be using food a lot because it is a primary reinforcer. A primary reinforcer means it's something that's required for life. So food, water, air, and geez, I guess you could also say like, comfort, like, coolness if you're hot, warmth if you're cold. I don't know if those would necessarily be primary reinforcers, but food, water, and air are definitely the three things needed for life specifically. I think all the rest could be argued. play, whatever. Um, but we will also talk about using toys as reinforcers. Of course, it's going to be very specific to the cat, whether it's food or whether it's a toy. It's um, a reinforcer is only a reinforcer if it is reinforcing to the learner. So if you think that this is the best, the best cat treat ever, and the cat doesn't like it, or they're just like okay about it, then it is not going to be a great motivator, a great reinforcer for building a bond with that cat. So anyway, figuring out what treats the cat likes specifically are going to be important, as well as finding out what toys they might like. What's their jam. Um, and so I'll just move this out of the way because I can't see what I wrote because there's things in the way. Zoom is all these silly things. Um, all right, so you were going to give a treat to reinforce the behavior you want. One option would be using the treat cap on a front of a cage or the front of the door. This could be also used for counter conditioning, which we'll talk about here in a minute, later on uh, in this presentation. But having that treat cup available, or having the food reinforcers readily available so that somebody can reinforce the behavior often will help build that behavior up. I'm not going to go drive you to tears with this, but at the beginning, um, in order to teach a behavior, a 1-to-1 ratio, the behavior happens, a treat happens, is the best way to teach, right? So it's consistent. I do this, I get a reward. I do this, I get a reward. I do this, I get a reward. That's really great for learning. Once the behavior is established, you can go to more of a varied schedule of reinforcement, which means that the reinforcement doesn't happen every single time. It happens periodically, but still often enough to keep the behavior happening. So again, that's more of a B-Mod Squad conversation, but still I like to kind of hope that you guys will move on from the blue car training and into the B-Mod Squad. So I'll give you little teasers. And so a couple of helpful behaviors that we can be teaching our shy cats in order to help with adoption, or even just to help with cleaning and just being in the shelter environment. One is going to be teaching them base, or like to settle on a mat in front of the cage. So, or in front of the door of the colony room. So if we put a little base there, a little blanket or towel or cozy cat bed, you put it there. Every time you step in there, you drop a treat on it. Um, I'll do a little example of showing you kind of one way to teach it. There's of course a couple different ways to go about it. Touch, teaching them to target their nose to your finger or to a chopstick, is a great way to get cats comfortable with people and with hands. And then stationing on a corunda bed uh, is similar to base in that you're asking them to go to a certain place. But my idea with this corunda bed, or maybe now with these colony rooms, would be on the chair where people sit. You're asking them to jump up on there. And if I open the door and you jump on that chair, you're going to get a treat. So that gets the cats jumping up onto a chair or getting up onto a certain station so they're away from the door and they don't go trying to run out the door. So, there's of course the ones we want them more comfortable coming to the door. There's ones that we want they're too comfortable with the door. We want them to take a step back, right? And then there's the ones that are maybe nervous around hands. And so using touch can help them become a little more comfortable with hands in general. Be more curious about hands. So, okay, I put this in here. So, I thought I put videos in between this, so my apologies, but I guess I changed it and I don't recall. So, with desensitization, and a lot of times you'll hear people say desensitization like with counter conditioning or and counter conditioning. I like with because I do feel like we use them together a lot, and they're often used just sort of in tandem. So again, for me it's just my interest here is to just like teach you what this terminology means, and so that you understand that, these words exist, what they mean generally speaking. But more, my interest is more about you being comfortable exhibiting some of these behaviors working with a cat. Um, so for the desensitization part of it, that is essentially slowly decreasing the distance to um, uh, a stimulus, right? So it's like if I'm afraid to be close to a spider, and then we're going to slowly decrease the distance between me and this spider, right? We're going to do it at a rate that is so slow and so minuscule. We'll start at a distance where I'm not scared of spiders, and then slowly increase, right? Little by little, to the point that I never actually go, ah, right? Never actually scares me, and then over time, just slowly to the point that I get more and more comfortable with this, say, spider situation. So slowly decreasing the distance to and or increasing the intensity of a decidedly aversive stimulus. So the intensity might be the how loud of a sound it is. Maybe we're getting them comfortable with I have a client we're working with, getting them comfortable with babies crying and all the baby sounds, because they have a baby on the way and they have two very shy cats, and they want to just make sure that the cats are as comfortable with all the weird sounds that are going to happen once that kiddo arrives. So that's what desensitization is. It's just slowly exposing the subject to something they find aversive at a low enough rate or at a far enough distance that you've got to find that threshold of where are they kind of comfortable. So where is the cat comfortable? If you come into the room and sit on the floor, are they able to still kind of slow blink and look at you and be comfortable? Is it the moment you open the door, are they scared? Right? What is the threshold of which they can be at least somewhat comfortable, not exhibit fear? And then how do we slowly move a little bit closer to them? The counter conditioning portion of that is, so counter conditioning is pairing a decidedly aversive stimulus, decidedly scary stimulus, with a highly desired stimulus, basically to override that fearful response or dislike of that thing. So if we want to go back to the old spider situation, right? It's like every time you see this spider, not only at a distance that you're comfortable, but you're also going to get, a bite of a cupcake. For me, that would be really great. I would want to see more spiders because I personally like cupcakes. Like cupcakes. I'm not a donut person. You give me donut, I can take it or leave it, right? So again, it's figuring out what is going to be enough for that cat to get them to be like, wow, this person equals churu treat for me. That's super awesome. Sorry, my camera looks like on my end it's doing some weird stuff. Hopefully, you can still hear me okay and everything. It's just kind of giving me funny lines. Thank you, Sydney. Um, so uh making sure that we are then trying to give that treat. And the thing is, right, if they're afraid of hands, our hands are usually going to come with the treat. So there's a lot of that we're probably pushing a little further than we should. Some cats, we need to put the treat on maybe a tongue depressor, right, to make them comfortable. Or maybe we're tossing hard treats like Little Temptations closer to them instead of reaching our hands forward, right? So we have to find ways that we can deliver this goodie to them without um, giving them too much of an overstimulation with our hand reaching towards them. So using desensitization, so slowly maybe moving your hand towards the cat while also including that treat, is a great way to increase a cat's comfort with handling, with people approaching, and even maybe with being picked up. And I will go through a little example in a video with a kitty just on, starting at a level that doesn't upset the cat, and then lifting and treating. Um, One thing we want to avoid is flooding. Um, Flooding is something that can be done in a laboratory setting in order to get a subject more comfortable with something they were already afraid of. Basically it's just like, say you're afraid of spiders and they just like, fear factor it and you get like, a bunch of tarantulas dumped all over you. And then you're kind of like, freaking out, which would be terrible for those poor tarantulas. And then, like you realize that you're okay. And then you're like, all right, you know what? I don't mind spiders so much anymore. Right? Like in theory that can happen. Number one, though, you're, in that situation, it's a human being. They can be, told that they're safe. They can be told that, these spiders, um, don't bite, whatever. Um, so when it comes to cats, sometimes people get in this habit of just like the cat will let them be let the person pet them, but it's more that the animal's maybe frozen or shut down, right? They've got this like, I can't really do anything about this, so I'm just gonna sit here. While they may appear somewhat maybe calm on the outside, on the inside, they may be having stress hormones flooding their bloodstream, high heart rate, so it's really not good for their health. And of course it's not good for their mental health or physical health. So we really want to avoid putting the cats in any situation where they're going to be having like, adrenaline, cortisol, right, flooding their veins, even if on the outside they appear quote unquote fine. um you can work on like, for instance, habituation. Like maybe they're really, a feral cat's like really freaked out about people at first, right? But then like over time, they kind of see people over a little bit over time and at varying degrees, right? And like after a while, they're like, oh yeah, it's a person, and they become habituated to seeing people. It doesn't necessarily mean, we don't really totally know, do they have a good conditioned emotional response or they have a bad one, right? But they're just sort of used to seeing people. Um, so like flooding is more of like this very intense all at once situation of exposure to a stimulus. And in order for flooding to work as a functional form of uh, changing an emotional response to a stimuli, to a stimulus, they must be less stressed at the end of the experience than they were when the whole experience started, or they're likely to become more stressed about it. So say they put me in with a bunch of spiders all over me and I'm freaking out, so then they feel bad about it, which, I would understand. And they remove all the spiders. And so I'm more scared at the end than I was at the beginning. So I'm going to more likely be like, have a, almost like a rebound anxiety, or more likely to have more anxiety towards spiders. Right? It's going to do the exact opposite that make me more comfortable with them. So similar to petting, what'll happen is the cat gets pet, they keep getting pet, they're frozen, they can't move, they're just stuck there. Person keeps petting them. Then the person decides to stop. The cat's heart rate is all up. They're all freaked out. The person walks out of the room. The next person that walks in that room, their cat now then might, you know, run and hide or hiss or do something, right? They're going to have a more intense response. So that's why I just want us to avoid having that kind of mindset of just like working with the cat till they kind of get over it. Um, because there's more things that we can do that actually may take a little longer to work with the cat on. However, they will have a more positive response at the end and less likely to trip that cat into aggression, whether it's defensive, like where they're defending themselves, or eventually then even offensive, where a person's coming and they're not going to wait to see what you're going to do. They're just going to come at you and attack you right from the get-go. So I'll get off my soapbox. So here's some first steps of the desensitization and counter conditioning kind of idea here. This kiddo, I'm just offering food. I'm reaching my hand into this carrier because this cat's ears are forward. He's engaging with me. I also read through his notes before I went in to work with him, and he hadn't shown any signs of um, aggressing towards anybody, growling or anything like that. If this cat had like put his ears back, or had appeared any more tension in the face, I likely would not have reached my hand in the way that I did here. So if you're not sure, if you're not feeling comfortable with this from like, the get-go as you're practicing this kind of stuff, I would recommend just having a tongue depressor with you, and either using some crunchy treats that we know the cat likes, and being able to toss them to the cat to see if the cat will eat, or offering the food on the end of a spoon or on the end of a tongue depressor, so that you're not putting your whole hand in front of an unfamiliar cat's face. I just wanted to preface that because it's a little bit of a um, it could be a little bit of a risky situation to do kind of how I'm doing it in here.
Yeah, show us those pupils. I know, sweetheart. Good. Yeah. What's a good boy? Okay. Come on down here. Go. Yeah. And the slow blink. And the blinks. Mm-hmm. Go. Boy. You want a little more? We'll put a little right here. Oh, am I tempting you to move? That's a good boy. That took a lot of bravery. That did. That took a lot of bravery. Here you go, handsome. Other things happening. Don't you worry. All you gotta do is just eat. That's all you gotta do.
And so I tried to play a little bit with him because he sort of brightened up a little bit and kind of looked like maybe he was, I don't know, feeling a little like, come on out. So I just thought maybe we can get him to play. You could definitely see where he sort of brightened up and um his face kind of relaxed, and everything about his demeanor seemed to loosen up quite a bit. And he sat up and kind of looked around, but then he quickly kind of, went back into his like, oh, but I don't really know. Because it was a busy day at the shelter. There was people walking around and stuff. And so, but it never hurts to try a little bit of play. Even if they're just watching and tracking the toy, you are helping them take their mind off of whatever else is going on around them. So it can be an enjoyable experience for a shy cat that maybe is a little too nervous to still play, but wants to maybe kind of be like, "Ooh, look at that thing," and just helping them put their mind on something other than this uh, maybe whether it's impending doom or whatever they may be, if they're just fearful. It helps build that relationship, and create a little bit increasing a little bit of comfort overall in the colony rooms. And then I reached forward, and I dropped a little food a little forward, so he had to stand up and reach for it. And he did. And he went for that food, but then, once they make that breach of, or they take that moment to trust you in that, and they take that, like, they give you that leap of faith. That's what I was trying to think of. We really want to treasure that moment and make sure that we then respond in kind very carefully. And so then I just really presented my hand very slowly, and he still stayed forward. But if I were to be like, oh, good, he moved forward, and then like jam my hand in there to quickly give him more food, right, that could have startled him back. So I was like, cool, that was really brave. And then here's a little bit more food. And I actually put that food a little bit further back so that he could still get that and also retreat a little bit from me. So I was giving him even just a little bonus reinforcer of like, I know you're still a little weirded out by me or a little unsure. So not only do you get to treat, but you also get to move a little bit further away from me. Um, that's just one of those personal preference things. And you'll see that I do that in some of these other videos of like, pushing them to something a little more challenging, and then I go back to an easy step afterwards. Almost as just I think an additional reinforcer, um, to be able to, you know, have less handling or get further away or just have it be easy and still get the reinforcer, get to be right for something easy, right? Because being right is also a reinforcer. Feels good. So, oh, bummer. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come back to this. Come on. I want to show you this video first, and then I'm going to go back to that other video. Um, this is just a little beginning steps of working with a shy cat and having them learn touching their nose to my finger. I use it as a greeting first. And then the other video is me working with my cat, just a brief snippet of that, of seeing a more developed version of touch, but also using a chopstick. So if you're unsure about a cat's comfort with you, again, using an extension of your hand like a chopstick or a pen, obviously like the pen cap or the eraser side of a pencil, something that you can let them sniff and you can reinforce them for touching their nose to that versus your hand. So that way your hand isn't all up in their business. Um, Also putting yourself at risk of maybe getting slapped or bit.
Hi, sweet girl. Hi, meow meow. Hi, meow meow. Oh, it's okay. I'm sorry. I know. I love this. I did, didn't I? I break out the big guns. My apologies.
Something I just want to mention about this cat too is that she's really not comfortable with being pet. And so um, she's just wary of it. So that's just, you kind of see me reach towards her a little bit and kind of push the boundaries a little, but also make sure that I'm keeping her happy with the true room stick. There was like, I don't know what was happening in the other room there. Um, uh, so let's here, I'll show you the chopstick. So with this video, I'm also using a clicker. I don't recommend using a clicker for nervous cats or shy cats because it's I don't know, it could be just an additional scary sound. You could always use a little mouth click if you want. Um, what I did use in the previous video was I just said yes, So what that is that is called your marker. That is the moment you feel that little wet nose touch your finger or see it touch the end of that chopstick, you're just going to mark with yes. And that lets the cat know that um, that was the behavior that is going to get that treat. That is why the treat happened. So we call it your marker word. It may be a mechanical marker like the clicker, you know, whatever. For, some animal people will use whistles, right? It's a marker. The moment the behavior happens, think of taking a picture. And so it just should be the same word every time. Yes. And then the treat happens within about, I don't know, 2 seconds after you say that word. So think of uh, your marker word. We want to ideally try to make that happen within about a half second of the behavior you wanted happening. Again, with these shy cats, it doesn't matter if you kind of goof it up. Worst case scenario, you're treating them, giving them treats, and they don't know why they're getting the treat. But at the end of the day, if that puts them in a good mood, that's all I care about. When we're working on more specific behavior modification, we may get a little bit more selective about, what we're marking and treating and all of that good stuff. So I digress. And of course, if you have questions about this, you can feel free to reach out about that. So here is touch using a chopstick, kind of just the end of this video here.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and start out with just presenting this. When his nose touches it, I'm going to click and treat. And we're going to do a couple repetitions just like that.
Right in everyone's face.
I dropped some, so that'll slow you down a little bit. Very nice, handsome. Once you've got a couple reps in there and you feel like the animal's performing, cat is performing well for you, you can go ahead and start adding in your verbal cue. Very cute, sweet boy. Touch. You're going to say that verbal cue just before presenting your physical cue. Touch. Let's do one more because you're so cute. Touch. All right, now it's your turn.
That gives you an idea. I do have a whole video with these feline charm schools that goes through all of like the different terminology for marker training and stuff. So if you want that, just reach out to me. I'll send it to you. It's not live on YouTube, but I can send you the link. Okay. So then I start to use my little, now that the cat is following my finger a little bit, I start to use it to teach bass, and you'll see that I just tap on the bed. And we have, her brother comes out to play with us as well.
Yes, good job.
So that time she just put one paw on the mat, and I was like, I'll take it. Good enough, right? We're not in the Olympics here. We're just trying to get the cat orienting to the mat. Something I just wanted to mention in here is that sometimes it can be helpful to use a hard treat for this, or to blob the treat onto the mat so that the cat actually is like, oh, it's about the mat, like this thing I'm standing on, and not your hands. Anyway, one of those little things you may pick up along the way. And so I did wait to start saying base until I had practiced it a couple times and had a feeling they were going to go step on it. If you're just saying a word over and over again and it doesn't have any clear meaning to the cat, they will eventually just stop listening to that word because it's just a sound that you make, right? So if you really wait until you're like, all right, you're ready to hear the word base, and then they do it, and then you can be like, yes, and treat, right? That word really starts to take on its power versus just saying it over and over again until like maybe they do what you want, and then by that point that word is kind of, you know, they may have it's become a sound in the background. And then with these kiddos, we've got lifting. So for handling cats, for picking them up, you know, shy cats, we can get them comfortable being picked up. That's you know, a huge help. Another thing that you know, is can be maybe helpful is having them go in their carrier, etc. But um, this way, we can start to maybe use like touch to get them to come out of an area, maybe base to go stand on that area, and then maybe using lifting, or whatever word you want to use, as long as you're consistent, as a precursor or predictor cue to let them know I'm about to reach my hand underneath you to lift you, and so they know it's about to happen. And then we're going to work our way up from just a side touch to maybe hand underneath to finally coming off the ground a little bit. So I go through it pretty quick with this cat. Most kiddos, you are not going to move this quickly. You may just get to the point where they're comfortable enough with you putting your hand just under their belly briefly, and that might be your whole training session. So just know that what you're seeing with this cat doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be that way with other cats. It may go faster, it may go a lot slower, and so remember to just break things down into little bite-sized, tangible bits for the cat so that they're always interested in the food and they're interested in working with you. They're not wanting to get away. They're staying engaged. And you'll see him kind of go off, or her go off under the chair briefly. And so I felt like maybe I'm not sure which guy. I think this is the brother. I think he you know, was maybe like, oh, a little too much, right? So I just gave him a treat off the mat, and then he did eventually come back over. So again, the mat gives me a good idea of how comfortable he is with being lifted, because if he's not on the mat, then he started telling me, hey, I don't really want to be near you. But if I'm on the mat, you can consider it, the term is a start button. It's letting you know, all right, I'm ready to do this. I'm having fun. But if I step off the mat, then I don't want to play anymore. Hopefully that, you know, think think you get. So then I just circled back. I was like, okay. And after that first lift, I just did a little belly touch and then went back to treating for that. Then I kind of pushed it. I pushed the envelope and went for a second lift. He was not ready for that and was like, "Oop," you know, and so, you know, again, I think I gave enough goodies where I made him feel like, okay, we're still cool, but I pushed my little trust, uh, my circle of trust there. I pushed on the edge of it a little bit at the end. Um, so, just be, if it happens, it happens. And then you just like, oh, sorry, got excited. Here's the treat. Right. And then, knowing when to kind of end the session, uh, or go back to something easier so that you're not, making the cat feel uncomfortable in your presence. Sorry, I don't know. Okay. Here's the Beth Edelman's Scaredy Cat Protocol in a nutshell here for you. This I think is something that could be potentially most effective, or I should, best executed at in a foster home with a shy cat. You have your foster cat room, and so you don't have this, you're not in this shelter environment where there may be like people walking all over. In your home you have a little more, hopefully maybe control about how loud things are and what else is going on, but you can enter the room, quietly announce yourself, like, hey, kitty, kitty, how you doing? Right. And then maybe if the cats say like underneath the bed, you can kind of kneel down and peek under the bed. You want to make eye contact. You want the cat to see you. You don't need to stare them down, but just kind of making that eye contact and then maybe tossing some treats towards them. Um, and I will usually look just beyond the cat so I can see them, but I'm not staring them in the eye. I'm not giving them like a stare down. Staring is considered a form of aggression in cats. Cats before fights will stare each other down. So just looking, just beyond them. And if you see any sign of relaxation, right? Like maybe it's just a slow blink, maybe they sniff the floor. I know some of these could be considered more like displacement behaviors, like kind of awkward behaviors. But we'll take what we can get sometimes, and maybe they actually eat the treat. Maybe they turn their head away, maybe they were sitting and they laid down, maybe they were in sternal laying down, and then they rock over on their hip, right? Some kind of just, maybe it might be even like a like just a big breath, a nice exhale. um Whatever you can get. It can be the littlest thing, but some sign of, I don't know if relaxation is necessarily the right word, but maybe deference is the right word, but just like they're not staring at you waiting for you to, like, axe murder them. They're like, okay, I guess I'm gonna maybe sniff this treat or something, and then you just calmly get up and leave. And you can, like, count to five, maybe 10, come back in, rinse and repeat, right? And so, you may be looking maybe a different behavior that you get up and leave, but you start just teaching that cat that they can come and go. Now, if they're really stressed, you coming in and out may have diminishing returns, right? Like after a while, they're like, oh my God, why do you keep coming in and out of the room? This is freaking me out. You may start falling into this flooding category. So you want to make sure that, you're just, if anything, maybe you do it, a couple times a day throughout the day. At the beginning, really spreading it out. Maybe you're going to do it, like I said, more of in a like repetitive manner of like every few seconds coming in. Just really depends on the cat, and you're going to cater it differently to the individual. But the idea here is the negative reinforcement part of it, that you are the aversive stimulus, right? You're the boogeyman. And you're going to remove yourself when a calm, quote unquote, calm behavior is expressed, in therefore increasing the occurrence of calm behavior. Now, does calm behavior equal a calm cat? Not necessarily, probably not. But some of these behaviors uh, may have some biofeedback, like for instance, taking a deep breath. Um, you're getting more oxygen in the blood, that can be calming. Um, if they are blinking, they are, obviously taking a moment to close their eyes and remove, stimulus, right? So, you can kind of, it's, I think definitely an arguable, technique, potentially in the training world, but I think all in all, the trainer that put this together had a really good success with it, as far as getting over time, the cat just realized you just come in, you drop something yummy, and then you leave, and you're not trying to interact with me. Um, and over time, the cat started to maybe move forward because he was anticipating a treat. So he'd move forward, and, and then because he moved forward, she would get up and leave, almost like maybe playing hard to get, right? But like, hey, wait a minute. You don't have to leave, you know, but also in theory, you may be giving the cat some control, right? The cat says like, "Hey, look, watch, I can get this lady to leave. I'm gonna blink my eyes and watch her go, or I'm gonna sniff the floor, watch her go," right? And so that can be inherently reinforcing in and of itself. Um, and so, what I like about this though is the idea of reinforcing behaviors that are more mellow, more calm than waiting for the cat to get to the point where they're hissing at you. If they do hiss at you, you can always just pause and give them a minute to maybe, you know, sniff the ground, turn their head away, and then get up and walk away. Um, I think there's a couple theories on that, that if they hiss, you can just get up and leave too, and see if that causes them to hiss less. Um, uh, because in that regard, you may be positively reinforcing the hiss. However, you're positively reinforcing the hiss with what they want. Over time, the emotion is going to change, and the hiss may not happen. So, um, so we're going to be working on a couple different levels with these cats. We'll be working on an emotional level, keeping them happy and content and safe, feeling safe and calm, while also that's going to be more the classical conditioning part of things, and that's more reflexive, right? Just like you don't necessarily have control over it. It's just the way you feel about something or someone. And then once we get them in a good head space where they're feeling good, then we can start to teach them behaviors that um, are preferable potentially for adoption or for handling, etc. So I just give a little word here about treats. We want to keep the treats small, keep it just a little taste. We want to keep the novelty of the treats so that maintains that they are a treat and not just a regular food item.
Hey everybody, just wanted to talk a little bit about food reinforcers, and oh my goodness, that kind of hurt. I'm using treats. Of course, it's important for treats to remain treats, and for them to stay motivating, they need to happen, not all the time. If we're just giving loads of like full treats all the time, then the kitties get full of the treats and they lose their motivating factor, because they just kind of become blah. They become meh, right? They're not exciting anymore because they're happening. So here I've got your regular greenie. This is a big chunk of food for a cat. So you can, if you're like strong enough, can break them. It's ideally we want to try to make it at least quarter it, so that our sweet little kitty friends are getting a taste. Even this, to be totally honest, you could even break the tail in half into quarters, so that she's just getting a little taste. When it comes to your typical temptations, definitely you can break these easily into at least quarters, or I will kind of even do like kind of sixths, like break each half into 3 parts. So you're getting this kind of powder. We can do, that's all they need would be one little treat. So that way
we are not filling the kitties up, making them want to throw up, but that we're also making sure that the treats stay novel and stay exciting. My only other addition to that would be if you're using like churu treats, let's maybe try to keep it to like one, either like a half to one tube per cat per training session. Less is more when you're trying to maintain the novelty and motivation quality of a treat.
A lot of words said, meaning saying the same thing.
Hey everybody.
Okay, so what treats are we going to use? Churu, there's a tiki sticks. There are like, I think there's the squeeze ups at the shelter right now. Uh, Love some makes squeeze up treats now. Actually, even Temptations does, but they charge like a stupid amount for them. It's not worth it. So any of these like kind of go-gurt squeeze up treats, most cats will like those. Um, uh, but they may not, or they may like the tuna version and not the chicken version, or vice versa. So if just because a cat doesn't like a treat doesn't mean they're not eating treats, period. You may need to try a couple little things to find out what they like. Although if they do like something and then they stop eating it in like the middle of a session training, or conditioning session with you, they may have gotten too nervous to eat. So, keeping that in mind that if they were eating and then they stop eating, it could be that they're not feeling well. It could also be that they're not interested in that food anymore, but it could also be that something happened that scared them. Maybe you pushed too far, maybe somebody dropped something, or there's somebody walking by, that their focus is on something other than food. Temptations are another favorite. We've got greenies, and as I talked about, breaking those up nice and small. Chicken baby food, like just the meat puree, can be a very, very high value goodie for cats. Again, you're not going to be giving it to them all the time. This is just during moments where you're trying to build a relationship with the cat, and teach them, or teach them alternative or, preferred behaviors. Um, I have found that canned tuna or chicken in water, the meat sure is great, but even that, just that juice, that water, it's stinky and, maybe get the low sodium one, salty, but it can really be a great something you can just like suck up in a syringe and administer that way. Um, and of course, Frisky's wet food can be a pretty common go-to, or any kind of like, kind of the, I'd say like the junk food, but more of that real stinky, real stinky gravy type of wet food is often preferred. The gravy usually preferred maybe over even the meat chunks. And I do think cats get sick of pate food, so like the texture. So mixing it up a bit. Um, if the cat is on a special diet, um, they may have a wet food that is under the umbrella of that special diet, that you can add a little bit of warm water and suck that up into a syringe and use that as a way to just get practice with the syringe a little bit, so you don't end up squirting the cat in the face. You want to obviously deliver it slowly and carefully in little bits. But if you mash it up into a pretty fine puree, it should go through the syringe fairly easily. You might need to cut the tip of it off. You could just ask a staff member to help you, find a syringe for that purpose. You obviously don't need the needle portion of it. Oopsie. Uh, there is hypoallergenic treats sometimes that come along with certain diets. The cat may or may not find them super enticing, so just know that they may not be the most exciting for the cat. You may need to find treat toys or something else to win the cat's favor. Um, and then just like freeze dried proteins. If the cat has a protein allergy, you can usually find like a specific protein, like the limited ingredient diets or whatever will have like they freeze dried duck, freeze dried rabbit, freeze dried minnows are popular in my house with my cats. And you can break them up real small. So those are just some ideas. Of course, those are also, it's going to be, Mark, I'm sure it'll be on their card of what treats are approved. And if you're not sure, just ask a staff member to find out for you, like what can we use for this cat as a food motivator. And if, look, this cat, we don't really know what's going on with them. They have this GI issue. We're not sure why, blah, blah, blah. Then we maybe just will use toys. And then, whatever bland diet they may be on, potentially you can use some of that right from their bowl. They may be interested in eating that from you like first thing in the morning or in the evening around dinner time. So we can find workarounds, but we do want it to be high value. We want it ideally to be something that's going to help the cat get over that level of discomfort, and also be motivated to interact with you. So if it's just kind of blah, if they're just not that into it, it's not impossible, but it just might take longer. You may just have to kind of wait for some of that habituation to set in, where they've just been there long enough, they start to get used to the routine, they start to just become generally more comfortable, and then, the hypoallergenic treats are like, they're still good enough. And another something that you can integrate is Feel Away. Um, and so there's plenty of that at the shelter. You'll see that there are plug-ins that are in the wall, that might be in the walls. It also comes in a spray. The spray, so Feel Away in and of itself is a synthetic pheromone that was created to mimic the feline pheromones. So for the original is like the cheek area when they rub up on something, like that cat is doing in the picture there. And then the multi-cat, I believe, mimics a nursing mother cat, or like a mother cat's pheromones to help keep the kittens calm and relaxed. So they both have soothing qualities to them. And the Feel Away Optimum is essentially like a combination of the two above. It's not really that, to be totally honest. I think it's kind of like a creation of several different pheromones. It seems to act on different receptors, I believe, for the cats, for urine marking, and inner-cat aggression, as well as anxiety. So anyhow, the Feel Away Optimum only comes in a diffuser. The multi-cat only comes in a diffuser. The spray that we have there at the shelter that you might spray on yourself is the original, and that's just fine. You can use that on your clothing. I would recommend like on your sleeves if you're going to be reaching towards the cats. If you're just going to be walking in, maybe spray it around your shoes, so that it's, obviously going to be on a part of your body that's going to be close to the cat. You may want to do it in between rooms, so between cats. Say if you're in with say intake, working with a cat that just came in that might be kind of nervous. Potentially there could be stress pheromones that cat's giving off that now are on you. So you come in smelling like a scared cat. That's not good. Potentially coming in smelling like a dog. Whether or not the cat has a conditioned emotional response to the smell of a dog is really dependent on the cat. But potentially just adding that Feel Away spray on top of it can at least help to, put a little bit of a positive spin on whatever that smell is on you. um, you want to spray it on yourself and then just wait a minute or two for the spray to actually dry um, before like walking into the room, um, or putting it on a towel. Um, if you're going to be helping like with in a medical scenario and you want to have the feel away on a towel that the cat's going to sit on, just spray it on the towel, shake it out, wait a little bit, and then put the cat on it. Don't just put the cat right there or grab the cat with it because it has a really kind of like an alcohol base that can be really uncomfortable for the cat to breathe in. Um, and then there is some I guess I don't know if really studies, but some observations to suggest that maybe having this cat, like if you put some treats, spray it on a towel, shake the towel off, let it dry, then put that down, put the treats on top of that. The fact that they're eating on top of this feel away, while they're breathing and eating, they're actually passing the pheromones, the synthetic pheromone over their vomeronasal organ, which is actually what absorbs the pheromone and causes it to have an effect. It's not like your sense of smell and your olfactory lobe in your brain. It's actually a little organ up in their nose. It's species specific. It won't have an effect on you. It won't have an effect on dogs. It only will affect felines. Um, and that is all I've got. So if you have any questions about this presentation, you can reach out to me, my little LLC. I am here in Frederick, Colorado, so I'm about 45 minutes south of Fort Collins. Um, it's called Caring Behavior. So you can check out my website. I'll have some other educational options out there for Animal Friends Alliance volunteers as well as vet techs and stuff. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram under at Caring Behavior. And of course, you can email me as well. And I look forward to working with all of you in the near future. And I hope that you will jump on board the B-Mod Squad when you feel you're ready. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Thanks so much for joining me today. Bye. All right, I'll hit stop share and I will stop.